What's up, y'all? Welcome to the third episode of the Thursday Email Podcast. I'm Tamer. Happy to be here with you today. Thank you for listening. As always, before I get started, a quick shout out to NK Music for the intro and the background music. You can find more information about their stuff in the description box if you're watching this on YouTube, and in the little description area if you're listening to this on Spotify. So today we're gonna continue the trend of doing something a little bit different than the last time, and then I promise it's gonna get a little bit more consistent. Maybe I shouldn't promise that, but I'm gonna try to make it a little bit more consistent as time goes. But I'm kind of using this as an opportunity to test the waters and see what things stick in this format. And so I'm also kind of cheating by taking a little bit of stuff from thursdayemail.com, which you should go visit right now, that I've already written, and just kind of, bringing that over here. But next week it'll be like completely new, fresh music conversation. I should also add that all the transcriptions for all of the episodes will be on thursdayemail.com. There should be a link to that in the descriptions on both on YouTube and Spotify, but if not, you can just go over to thursdayemail.com. I'll try to put a link towards the top that says like transcriptions from podcasts, or like there will just be like a general podcast page on the blog where you can go and you can look at all the podcasts. There will be links to them, and then all the transcription links as well. So like I promised last week, I'm gonna take another little trip back into 2020 with this episode and talk about my top 20 albums of last year. And I'm kind of using this as an opportunity to continue my kind of get to know you phase, where I'm hoping like this is another opportunity to kind of share the kind of music that I like, and also the kind of stuff that I look for when I'm listening to a project, especially if I'm gonna put it in my top albums list or my like favorite albums list. And I listened to a lot of really good projects last year. Some of them were just like projects that I've listened to before. So this list is actually gonna be kind of weird because it's just generally like it's not necessarily albums from last year, but I looked through my Last FM, which if you don't use Last FM, I highly recommend that you get on that. It's a really good way to track the music that you listen to if you're someone who's just like, shit, I don't remember what that song was that I listened to yesterday, or the song that I listened to 2 weeks ago, like one time in my friend's car when you probably should have just been at home because we should be social distancing. But if you don't remember the name of that song and you use Last FM, you can just go back really quick and find it. And I've been using it since like 2015, maybe even like earlier than that. I'm gonna check because I'm really curious. I might have been using it since like 2011, to be honest. 2012. 2012. June 7th, 2012 was my first time, so I'll have to do something special that day to celebrate how long I've been using Last FM. So that's my Last FM plug. But I went through Last FM and Spotify and my mind to come up with my top 20 albums of the year last year. And like I said, basically it's just a bunch of albums that I listened to a lot, either because it was the first year that I was listening to them and they really, were hitting that year, or there might have been a song on there that I really enjoyed, or they just, were my car music, where I have been going on like hour-long drives almost every day for the past couple months, and I always pick the same like 2 or 3 projects to listen to because I like to sing in the car, and so those are on here. There's a bunch of different reasons why an album would end up on this list, so like I said, I figured it was a really good opportunity just to kind of share the kind of music that I listen to and what goes into me calling an album my favorite. Plus I listened to 80 new projects last year. And so this was a nice opportunity for me to kind of like see the ones that I liked a lot. So we're gonna start at number 20 and then in the episode on number 1. So number 20, and this is actually a pretty good starting point, because this album kind of has a 10th anniversary coming up this year or next year, depending on what we're talking about. But number 20 is Trilogy by The Weeknd. I love this album. I have been a Weeknd fan since 2011. I'm happy to say. I started listening to him right before Echoes of Silence came out. I used to have this really big crush on this guy in high school. And I also listened to Drake a lot in high school. That has since settled down, but I used to listen to Drake a lot, and he was just like, I think you would really like The Weeknd, and kind of like showed me a couple songs to look up, and I ended up really loving The Weeknd, and now it's been 10 years. So shout out to that guy. But yeah, so that was maybe like in August, or like September or October of 2011. And so it's been almost 10 years at this point since I've been listening to The Weeknd. And I shouldn't have been listening to The Weeknd at such a young age, such a ripe age, but his voice, the ambiance, the vibe, the aesthetic, it was the mystery, it was all very like, I loved it. And so Trilogy has kind of been in one of those projects that has been in my life for a really long time. And so it's a go-to whenever I'm looking for just like a moment of I need to sing my head off. Trilogy is a go-to. Like, I'm gonna pick Trilogy off top. We can have debates on like which mixtape is the best, but Trilogy as a whole is amazing. The Weeknd has such a solid discography that I can start off with Trilogy and end up listening to the whole thing on accident. And so I spent a lot of time last year just like cry singing to The Weeknd's music. I don't want to say how many times it's happened, but my Last FM link is on Thursday email. You can click it and you can see how many times I've listened to Trilogy. So that's my number 20. I also should say that there is a top 20. There's 4 different write-ups for my top 20 on Thursday email, and you can go and there is a write-up that I already did last year on all of these projects, and so you can get a little bit more in depth too. I don't want to make this too long. So you can get a little bit more information on there. It's a combination of like first listens, so those are write-ups for albums that I'm listening to for the first time. I was doing a series on there called My Favorites of All Time, and that's just me kind of talking about albums that are my favorites of all time. There are album lookbacks, which are basically me talking about albums that I listened to a while back and just didn't write anything on. And then there are also bite-sized album reviews, which are just like first listens but a lot shorter. First listens tend to be like paragraphs and paragraphs long. I should also add on the first listen thing that the Playboy Cardi Whole Lotta Red first listen is on Thursday email. I didn't mention that in the last episode, but it's on there. There should be a link also in the episode description stuff, so it's there. You can go check it out. But there's also a top 20 write-up series on Thursday email. You can click around and read the articles on those. Anyway, number 19 is Spilligion by Spillage Village. I really enjoyed this project. I haven't listened to a whole bunch of songs from it in a while, but they really said, we're really stuck in this house together, we're gonna make something amazing, and they did that. I remember waking up the morning that it was released, and this was when I was on Reddit really heavily. It's questionable over there, but it's a really good place when you want to keep up with music. And now, since I haven't really been on there that long, I feel like I'm completely out of the mix. But I remember listening to it because I saw someone post that the vinyl record got released, and it was like a really beautiful, clear record with like colorful splatter based on like the colors that they had on the album cover. And I wanted to buy it, but I wanted to listen to the project first, so I wasn't spending money. I'll have to make another episode one day about me and my record collection and the journey that it took, starting at the beginning of the pandemic where I had 4 albums to me now having 50. It's been out of control. And so I needed to practice a little bit of like self-restraint. And so I wanted to listen to the project first before I bought it, and I ended up buying it because the project was absolutely amazing. It was perfect. I think like the overall religious undertones on that project like speak to the hope that a lot of people were looking for last year and are still looking for, because things have only gotten worse. And I think like if 2020 needed a musical time capsule, like Spilligion is that. It was a really great project. A lot of really amazing artists in that group. Number 18 is Legends Never Die by Juice WRLD. This was another one that I listened to because I wanted to buy the record, and I'll have to say really like unfortunately that I was gonna buy the record because it was a limited edition, and I was just like, oh my god, if I buy this limited edition Juice WRLD because people love Juice, then I can trade it for an album that I really wanted. And yeah, I ended up feeling really bad about that, especially because I ended up really loving that project, and so I still have it. I bought it. I'm still waiting on my Smile single 7-inch to come. I don't know where it is, but I ended up keeping it. So I had a little bit of a redemption arc, but I ended up buying it because I wanted to trade it, and I'm really sorry, Juice WRLD. I hope you're resting in peace up there. But I had never listened to Juice WRLD before, but he was another person similar to Playboi Carti that I had heard so many really good things about, and so I was actually kind of excited to listen to it, and I ended up, like I said, just absolutely loving that project. Juice was so super talented in the way that he was mixing like rock and hip hop together. Was like so masterful, and it's such a shame that he, was taken away from us so soon. It's one of those things. He's one of those people where I've had a couple people where I found out about their music after they passed, and then I just like went through this like 2-week long period of shame where I was just like, why didn't I start listening to them before they died? Because I know I would have been a Juice WRLD stan. And so I can only be a baby Juice WRLD stan now because I didn't really get a chance to really be around his music like that before he died. But I would have for sure been a Juice WRLD stan, especially if I was like in high school when he came out. Oh, you wouldn't have been able to tell me anything about Juice WRLD. Like, I know he would have been up there with like Tyler the Creator and Odd Future for me. I'm thinking about the album right now. Smile, such a great song. Tell Me You Love Me with Trippie Redd. Oh, that song is so good. Come and Go, Bad Energy. So many really good songs. I actually am going to listen to that project after I finish this. So Legends Never Die, a proud member of my record collection, a proud memory that I have of finally deciding to not be fake and listen to the project for real. Rest in peace, Juice WRLD. So that's number 18. And then number 17 is Magdalene by FKA Twigs. I will say that one of my coping mechanisms is daydreaming, and I will actively listen to Magdalene to help me daydream because it's that beautiful. It's so short, but the way that she was able to take her rough experiences and turn them into a really beautiful short project, dedicated to the strength and resilience of women who are often put aside, was absolutely gorgeous. The music video's perfect. I'm watched a little bit of Holy Terrain earlier, and just the dancing and the movement and the femininity. I'm not super big all the time on needing divine feminine energy in my life, because sometimes I'm just ooh, that's a little bit too much. But that album for me is like the definition of like divine feminine energy. Like it circulates the entirety of like the environment that project exists in. It's so good, and Twigs is so talented. She's really great. She's an amazing artist, like completely. Perfect. I actually was listening to Magdalene like an hour before I started recording, and so everything's really fresh in my mind. And Fallen Alien it was so underrated for me because I didn't like how it sounded at first. Like I gave it maybe 30 seconds the first time I heard it, and then I went back right after that, and I was just like, you're foolish. The song's great. Every song on there is amazing. I have to listen to it again after I listen to Juice WRLD later. Alright, number 16. Number 16 is Because the Internet by Childish Gambino. Another project that's super old, but it's so timeless for me. Spending so much time by myself the past 8 months, I've like been having a lot of hashtag intrusive thoughts. And so Because the Internet has been like one of those albums that I've used to kind of help guide me through that a little bit. A lot of feelings of like, loneliness and stuff like that. That Bino talks about on that project. And so I have listened to Because the Internet so many times over the past like 8 months. And he also that was, I feel like, the first real time where I was able to recognize just how strong of a creative Childish Gambino is. I knew he was before because I watched Community and all of that stuff, and I had been listening to Childish Gambino before Because the Internet came out. But when that album came out, I was just like, you gave us an album and a screenplay and a prequel film to go along with this and create it. That screenplay, if you were around, you had to see the screenplay. Childish Gambino learned how to code so that he could make that screenplay available on the internet and have the videos embedded and have the music play at a certain time. I don't think that link exists anymore because I think I tried it last year and it doesn't exist. And there used to be someone made a duplicate of it, and so it existed in some form, but I don't think that one exists anymore either. But that was just such an incredible his mind. Donald Glover for me is just one of those people that I admire heavily as a creative. The way he puts things together and stories together is so amazing to me. And I also I want to keep moving, but I had a little bit of an unfortunate situation that happened regarding my Because the Internet vinyl record that I will have a link to. I'll have the link to the story about that on Thursday email. Essentially, I got scammed out of some money. It wasn't a whole bunch. I mean, it was a lot. It was $40. But I ended up getting the record anyway, and I have information about that on Thursday email, so you should go check that out. The link is in the description box. Number 15 is, and this is actually really timely, was Food by MF Doom. And I made this list way before we found out that Doom passed. When we found out really late that Doom passed. But MF Doom's Food project was another one that I listened to it so much last year, and I don't know why I listened to it so much, but it really was I had listened to it before, years before, but it really was hitting last year. And I think it might have been because, like I said, I started my record collection more heavily last year, and so I was hunting down that project a lot, and I finally was able to get it. And it's such a short project, but it's so full with the samples of the TV shows and stuff like that, and just the world that Doom creates on that project. It's you're watching a whole 2-hour movie in a 40-minute project. That album is nothing. It's barely any time, and each song is so short, but all those songs are perfect. And it's just the perfect album to listen to when you just need to put something on. And sometimes it gets a little bit annoying to flip the records over because each side is only 8 minutes. but it's worth it for Doom in that project, and he's so talented, and that was a really big loss for the hip-hop community and the hip-hop world. Doom was so talented and was such a big impact on music in general, and just was like everybody's favorite rapper's favorite rapper. Like, you can trace like everybody back to Doom. And also I really admire the way that he was able to take charge of his identity and was just like, you know what, I'm gonna just be over here. Y'all don't need to know who I am. Y'all don't need to know my life like that. I'm just gonna make fire songs and I'm gonna go about my day. And he was able to remain like that, you know, through his entire life. It's funny because the version of the record I have is the Vinyl Me Please edition, and I think they're stopping this soon. They like include stencils in all the hip hop records. Like, they have like a hip hop track for their record of the month, and if you get those, you have like a stencil that gets included. And so I made some art with the food one, and it's actually like sitting in front of me right now. And so it's like a nice little moment that I'm having. But perfect album, perfect human. Number 14 is Erykah Badu's Mama's Gun. Oh my god. That album, wow. The songs on there quickly were added to like my daily rotation. I didn't think so I have another series. You really have to just go to thursdayemo.com a lot of times for a lot of background information on things. So I'm sorry to be giving you all these links, but also like it is what it is. But I do like this series called Week Fulla, and it's basically just like I'll pick a week randomly. There's actually a Week Fulla coming up in a couple weeks that I'm gonna do. Maybe I'll keep that to myself. I'll keep it to myself. You have to go to Thursday Email. Maybe I'll talk about it the next episode. But I will either do like a week full of 90s hip hop, or a week full of Dreamville where I'll listen to all Dreamville projects, or I had a week full of Lupe Fiasco where I talked about Lupe Fiasco projects. And so I think the last week full of that I did last year was a week full of women in 2000s R&B. I was supposed to do 90s and 2000s R&B, like a 2-week thing, but the albums are so long in the 90s and early 2000s that I was just like, I don't have that in me, and so I just did the 2000s. Actually, did I end up listening to Mama's Gun that week? I didn't. I didn't. I don't think that I did. No, I didn't. But I mean, it's relevant because I have been listening already to like, you know, women, like black women who made R&B albums in the early 2000s, and so it was people like Khalees, who will come up later on because I have become a Khalees stan in the past year. That woman is absolutely amazing. She has entered my life as a role model, like completely. She's great. But like Khalees, NDI, Jill Scott, I think I listened to Ashanti, and one other person I can't remember off the top of my head. But the only album off of there that I like continued to listen to was Khalees's Wonderland. Amazing album. And so I was still kind of in that like mood to listen to early 2000s music, and my like top decade in my Spotify Wrapped ended up being early 2000s. So that's all I was doing. It was just like a year full of nostalgia. But Mama's Gun really just came in and like took over my life. Like I was listening to like Bag Lady, Time's a Wastin', all of those songs, like on and on and on. Wow. Like I just was listening to those songs all the time. Didn't you know? Like all those songs were so good. And also like the Vinyl Me Please repress of that project is so gorgeous. They included like a print of Erykah Badu, like a photo that someone took of her like in a car, and she just looks so beautiful. It's actually hanging on the wall behind me. and I just stare at her like the goddess that she is every morning. I'm just like, thank you for existing, and giving us such a perfect project. Oh my god, I'm like adding albums to my list of things to do after I finish this. Number 13 was Awaken My Love by Childish Gambino. I got scammed into not listening to that project until last year. Or it was someone that one of my friends was a huge Childish Gambino fan, but didn't really like Awaken My Love, and I think that's just because it didn't sound like Because the Internet. And so I didn't listen to it for a really long time, and then I listened to it for the first time last year, and it was perfect. I don't really have much more to say other than that, other than what I already said about Bino earlier, but Awaken My Love is so good, and he's, like I said, another person that can just like move through music like it's nothing, like butter. That album is so good. Number 12 is For the Whole World to See by Death. That Death is a black punk band, and wow, it's so good. They have a song called what is that song called? Hold on, I don't want to lie. I want to say it's Politicians in My Eyes, but I don't think I was listening to Politicians in My Eyes. Freaking Out. That's the song. I had listened to Freaking Out. I had to click on the link on the article so that I could remember. But it was like in 2018, I was writing my thesis that I talked about in episode 1. And I had been wanting to listen to Pharrell's Other Tone podcast, which he actually started back up recently, and so I'm gonna have to catch up on that. But he did a Tyler the Creator episode, and obviously, I love Tyler, and so I was just like, it's Tyler and Pharrell, like I'm gonna lose my mind. And so I was listening to the podcast, and they played Death's Freaking Out on there, and I absolutely loved it. But I didn't really listen to any more Death after that. And then I was on Reddit, and somebody talked about how there was a re-release of For the Whole World to See, and I was just like, oh, that band looks familiar, like I kind of remember that album cover. And then I reminded myself that, like, oh, that's the band that did Freaking Out. And so I went and listened to the entire project. It's another really short project. There's only a handful of songs on there. But it was so good, and I ended up buying it, and now I have the record. But it was a part of another week full of that I did on Black Punk, because Black Punk bands just like didn't get the shine that they deserved at all, and I did a whole write-up on how black people have just kind of been written out of rock music, even though like black people made rock. And Death was like one of the first punk bands, and like no one knows who they were, and so that actually sparked me. Like, listening to that project sparked me to listening to some other black punk bands, like Pure Hell and Fishbone, Bad Brains. So I had a nice like week where I was just listening to punk music, and that was like super cool. It really made like my inner angsty teenager like very happy. And if I knew about Death in high school, I would have been all over that. So that was number 12. And then number 11 was Lady Lady by Masego. Another project that took me way too long to listen to in full, and I had no reason for it. I had listened to the song Lady Lady, and I'm trying to think what else is on there. What is that song called? Queen Tings. And I think there's maybe one other song on there that I listened to before, but those were the only ones. But I love Masego's music. I love what's that album called? Darn, I wasn't really hoping I was gonna. I was hoping I'd just know this off the top of my head, but I don't remember it. It is what is that project called? I'm gonna have to go on Spotify. Loose Thoughts. I didn't have to go on Spotify. I got there. He has an album. He has an album called Loose Thoughts that he released before Lady Lady, and one of my friends told me about Loose Thoughts, or maybe I found Loose Thoughts on my own. I don't remember, but I love that album, and so I don't know why it took me so long to listen to Lady Lady, but I finally listened to it and absolutely loved it. I don't have really much to say more about Lady Lady, but it's such a good project and ended up becoming one of those projects that I just listened to and I just needed something to listen to. So that's number 11. Number 10, now we're getting into like those songs, those projects that like really got me through last year. And number 10 is Hold Space for Me by Orion Sun. I love Orion Sun. Like, Orion Sun is so cool to me. Like, she has such an amazing voice, her style. I watched a live stream concert that she did where she performed some songs from Hold Space for Me in like March. This was like pandemic season 1. And so this was when everybody was doing live concerts through Zoom, and so I got to like hear her perform some songs live, quote unquote. I actually was supposed to go to an Orion Sun concert in April or June. It was still when I was in New York. I think it was supposed to be in April because I knew I was still going to be in New York at the time. But then the pandemic happened and I wasn't able to go. I was also supposed to go see Lupe Fiasco. Ruined it. I was so sad about those two concerts. But that project is such a perfect album for anybody in their 20s. She just talks about like how shitty it is to be in your 20s and like all the growing and the reevaluating and just needing to be really not go easy on yourself, but be honest with yourself and hold space for yourself to be, real with you in your relationships with people, your relationships with yourself, and really having those difficult and truthful conversations. And she talks about that in that project, and I was feeling a lot of that for myself when I was listening to it, and so it ended up being such a relatable project. It was actually one of the first projects that I wrote about for Thursday Email. And I've referenced it so many times on the blog since then because it's an absolutely perfect project. And she, like I said, she has an amazing voice. There's some really, really great songs on there that like I cry to in my room by myself. It's such a good project, and I really hope she's just having a great day today. She's so amazing to me. Let me stop. Let me stop while I'm ahead because I could talk about Orion Sun all day. Number 9 is actually a project from an up-and-coming artist. I mentioned in the first episode that like I started doing a little bit more research on like up-and-coming artists and trying to like listen to some smaller artists more than just like listening to mainstream people. And there was this mainly producer, but he also raps, named Two-Face, who dropped a project last year called Best Kept Secret. I love that project. It's so good. That project for me represented why looking at smaller artists, I mean, also because I'm a smaller artist, but like looking at smaller artists more intentionally was so important for me. It was such a wonderful experience spending time with art made by people doing, the same thing as me. And like, it's the perfect example of what happens when you keep going despite like any uncertainty that you have with the path that you're on and the like lane that you're crafting for yourself, even if that means that you just have to do that work in secret. And like that's why he named it Best Kept Secret. It's just it's so good. Like the production on there is like top tier, like elite. It's elite. Like if you listen to that project, you have to listen to 25/8 and you have to listen to DIO. Those two songs for me like will give you what you need out of that project, but then you should just listen to the whole thing. And then you should go on Thursday Email and read the Q&A that I did with Two-Face. And so I'm really, really hoping that this year will bring more opportunities for me to do more work like that, where I can look at more projects and stuff by smaller artists, because that was a like stick out album for me, and obviously because it ended up in the number 9 spot over like a bunch of mainstream artists. So Two-Face, so talented. Number 8, I already mentioned Wonderland by Khalees. but number 8 is Wonderland by Khalees. I love Khalees. I love Khalees. I'm gonna like save my like Khalees soapbox moment for later on because Tasty is one of my favorite projects. And it's like number 2, I think. I actually don't know. We're gonna have to wait until I get there. But I don't know how I went this long without listening to Khalees. But like that was another like mistake that I made in my life. And I'm so happy that I finally stopped playing myself and like listen to Khalees. Like she is like the perfect example of what happens to like when you dedicate yourself to doing what you want to do. Like she's in her like on her farm with her kids. I think she just had a baby girl like a couple months ago, married, like has her farm and has like this like, it's called Bounty in Full, where she like packages like little spice mixes and like recipes and stuff like that she grows on her farm and like sends, and like you can buy a box of like products from her farm. And like she has like, because she's like a chef too, and so she has like she'll do like little tutorials on like Instagram where she'll say like, this is the spice mix that I'm using and I'm using it to make like these black bean burgers, or like this sauteed salmon and like I don't know, broccoli rabe or whatever. I don't know. But it all looks delicious. And like that's just like we have to stand. Like we don't have a choice but to just really love Miss Khalees. Like that woman is absolute like perfection to me. She's on that farm with her husband and babies, with a discography full of like great music, living her life, and that's just what I want for myself. I said I wasn't gonna get on my Khalees soapbox, but I just had to real quick. But she's just great. She's so good. Number 7, I have to move on because again, I could talk about Khalees all day too. Her and Orion's son. I love black women. Like we're so amazing. Number 7 is Unlocked by Denzel Curry and Kenny Beats. Like I said, this is a Denzel Curry like stan account all the way. I love Denzel Curry, but this project is so amazing. Like everything from the release when they were like fake beefing on Twitter, and like that was one of the like one times a year that I like went on Twitter and I was just like, what's going on? We canceling Kenny Beats? And then I find out that like it's just an album release. And it was actually like the funniest thing because everybody was so confused, and I was just like, I don't even know who Kenny Beats is right now like that, but like if we gotta cancel him, like let's do it, because I'm here for Denzel. And it ended up being fine. And like every time I think of this like album, I think of like that TikTok audio that's like, if you put a French fry with some ice cream, you have an orgasm. That's this project for me. It's so good. Like everything about it. And they also like made a comic, and like I bought the comic, so like it's on my wall. And it's so cool. And another like little nod to MF Doom I thought about in food while I was listening to this project, and like now I know it was an intentional thing. So perfection. I love it. Number 6 is the album Still by Latrell James. This is a Latrell James stan account as well. Latrell James is just so talented. Like talented, like nice, like talented. Like he'll go live every once in a while and just like play beats that he made, and I'm just like, you are just in your house making beats like that for fun. Like you're making top tier high quality beats like that for funsies. Like that's just so wild. It's just so wild to me. And he has a song on that album called Grateful, and that song was like the soundtrack for my 2020. Like I had so many moments where like Grateful was like the only thing that pulled me through for real. Like without Grateful, like I don't know if I would have made it through last year. Like just having the reminder to be thankful, like despite of having bad days, just like being thankful for like waking up in the morning and like breathing and having air in my lungs, which is like a real thing, you know, with like COVID happening right now. It was like such a simple thing, like such a simple concept, but he put it together like so masterfully. Latrell James. It just I love it. He's so good. Such a good artist. And also somebody who just, you can tell that he really, really cares about his craft a lot. All right. Top 5. Top 5. These are the meat and potatoes. And the reasons why I get out of the bed in the morning. Other than like my cat needing to eat. She's actually just like circling me right now. I don't know what her problem is. I don't know if you could hear her little bell ring, but she's doing a lot right now. I think she just wants attention. But number 5 is Taboo by Denzel Curry. Unsurprisingly, Denzel has made another appearance. While I was living with a professor and like working at the college that I graduated from before like the pandemic ended up like making me come back home, I used to spend every Saturday morning like cooking my meals from the week. I was like a fake meal prepper, mostly out of convenience. I didn't feel like cooking every day or cooking every other day, and we do that completely differently. Like now that I'm home, we like cook every 2 days, and I'm just like, this is too much, girl. Like, this is too much. Like, who's making food every 2 days like this? Because I was so used to just like spending like 2 hours in the kitchen on Saturdays, just like cooking the only meal that I was gonna have for dinner that week. Like, if I didn't like it, it was just gonna be unfortunate for me. And so I would like go get groceries. And back then, like, I was either walking or riding my bike to the bus stop, and going on the bus, going to like Stop and Shop, and then coming back and like cooking dinner. And so I would always turn on either Dear Kev on Stage, which I love Kev on Stage and I love that series, or I was listening to Taboo. And so I like repeatedly, and I would be in there for hours, and so I would get through Taboo at least like 2.5 times. And so like Taboo, like it's amazing in it, like in its own right, but off the strength of like those Saturday morning cook sessions, like I had to put Taboo in the top 5, because those were like really beautiful moments for me. I actually really enjoyed doing that. Number 4, Tasty by Khalees. Number 4 is Tasty by Khalees. I thought it was number 2, but it's number 4. It's up there. This album is like magnificent. Like, this album is the sole reason. Like, Khalees could have like literally done nothing else for me. Like, she could have just like given us I'ma just never like be on anything ever again. Like, she could literally have done nothing else but given us Tasty, and I would still be a Khalees stan for the rest of my life. Like, it makes me kind of sad to think that this album was kind of the beginning of her like really difficult relationship with like Pharrell Williams and Chad Hugo. That was apparently, allegedly, they kind of played her with her contract and stuff like that, and she wasn't getting paid her money. So I'm also like, I love some Pharrell, but that was like a real like knock to my Pharrell like fanship, cause Khalees. So it makes me kind of sad that this was, her moment where she was just like, people keep trying to play me and like saying that I can't be successful without the Neptunes. I'm gonna show them. But she showed them. Like, I think that actually ended up being like a really good moment for her, where she, was taken out of the element that she had kind of been put in by working with Neptunes, and she had all these other producers under her belt that she could utilize. And like the Neptunes like influence was still there, but she was just able to give us more of herself, and could experiment a little bit more. And like, she proved that she could be talented on her own without Pharrell and Chad. And the whole project, I haven't listened to the song on there that she has with Nas, just because like she's spoken out about like how difficult her relationship was with him. And so I feel weird about like listening to it, knowing, how difficult that relationship was for her. But so I skipped that song, but every other song is like chef's kiss. Like, it's absolutely perfection. Number 3, we're almost there, was Black on Both Sides by Mos Def. Wow. The same way that I feel about Khalees, minus like a little bit, I feel about Mos Def. Like it took one listen to Black on Both Sides, and I was hooked. Like wow. Like I didn't know what to expect listening to Mos Def for the first time, but he really, like, that album proved to me that even though he only has like a handful of projects, like he deserves to be in the conversation about like top lyricists and like people who have made like the most influence on the hip hop community. Like Mos Def deserves to be up there, and like Black on Both Sides like proves that. Number 2 was Fly or Die by NERD. I've listened to this album a lot. I still listen to this album a lot. I have determined that this album is my favorite album. Like, it took me a minute. I had some moments where, like, I was going through, like, a little bit of, like, denial, where I was just like, is this really my favorite album? It came out in 2004. Can I really say a 2004 project is my favorite? Like, is that evolved enough? But now it's just like, you know what? It's my favorite project. Like, period. Like, full stop. This album is like absolute perfection. Everything good about NERD and like Pharrell and Chad and Shay together is on this project. Like, it's angsty, it has like the funk, it has like the hip hop, it has the rock, it has Pharrell. Like, everything about music I love, and it's in this project. And like, it also has like my favorite sad boy hour songs. Like, all I have to do is throw on Breakout, Jump, or Fly or Die, and it like doesn't make me feel better, but I can like scream the lyrics at the top of my lungs, and like it helps a little bit. And like, if you haven't listened to any NERD project ever, I highly recommend that you listen to Fly or Die. Like, you have to. You don't have a choice. Like, stop right now. Like, put this on pause, listen to Fly or Die, and then come back. Because you have to hear it. Like, they did their best work on that project. And then finally, number 1 for me last year was After Hours by The Weeknd. So we started with The Weeknd and we're ending with The Weeknd. I debated it. I debated this album a lot, on whether or not I wanted to put it in the top spot, but it felt right. I didn't expect to get what we got on After Hours. Like, I knew that we were gonna get a good project because The Weeknd makes good music. There's not a bad Weeknd project. I have some projects that I like less than the others, but like, it's The Weeknd. He makes good music. But I didn't know we were gonna get this masterpiece that was literally gonna be like months long. Like, after I listened to the project for the first time, I will say that I wasn't super into it. I really liked Blinding Lights the first time I heard it, but then he dropped Heartless, and I was like, I don't know. I'm gonna listen to the project, but I don't know. And then I listened to After Hours, and I was like, I don't know. I don't really know what he was trying to do. And I think that was because people were saying that this was supposed to be an album that like played into the trilogy feeling a little bit more, and I was just like, well, that was a lie. Like, there's nothing really trilogy about this. Like, there's always a little bit of trilogy in the projects, but people were like saying that, and I mean, I don't know why I was listening to them anyway, but people were saying that like this album was gonna be like trilogy was gonna be in here, and it wasn't. But that's fine because it was still really good. And after I went back and listened to it a second and third time, I was hooked. Like, Abel does like a really good job at like building worlds on his project. But After Hours felt like a complete, like, he took that to the next level. Like, he has embodied that After Hours character forever. Like, that album came out in March. It's almost March again, and the amount of times that I've seen him in that red suit and those black pants and those loafers, I cannot count them. And like, it's gonna continue because he's probably gonna have that exact same outfit on when he does his Super Bowl performance. So it's been like almost a year that he's been like in this After Hours world. And like, as we got into like pandemic season 4, so like October, November, I was like, okay, like, pack it up, Abel. Like pack it up, baby. Like, you've been doing this for like a long time. The album came out 5 months ago. Like, let's move on. But also, like, I was like, no, like, it's that good. Like, the project is that good. The album is that good that he deserves to soak in every single moment, especially since he got played by the Grammys, which I might have to take an episode about. But he, like, this album, like, proves that he is a star. Like, he is far from that, like, faceless, like, mysterious, like, angel voice that, like, sung about, like, the unmentionables, and, like, is a complete, like, pop star, and, like, everything he touches is absolutely amazing, and, like, he's the type of artist, for me, that really benefits from you, like, forgetting what the stuff that he made in the past sounds like. Not that you can't, like, I mean, like, remember it for real, but, like, you can't base anything about his work currently on the stuff that he did in the past, because everything that he makes is completely different. And like I said, I made that mistake when going into listening to this project, and had to, like, fix it for me. And it literally took me to be like, you know what? No, like, this isn't trilogy. It's been, like, 8 years. Wrap it up. Like, everything's not gonna be trilogy. And once I got that through my head, I was like, oh, this album is actually a masterpiece. Like, it's actually great. And I ended up buying, like, 2 different vinyl record copies of it. So, like, I have, like, the signed holographic copy, that I have, like, the signed sleeve on my wall, and so I get to just stare at it all the time. And then I have another one of the collector's editions, because the album was that good that I just kept spending money. And so I'm so excited to see what he brings to, like, the Super Bowl performance. Like, I'm so excited. He just brought such a level of care and, like, intentionality on this project that, like, you just can't help but like it. And if anybody tells me they don't like this project, I don't know. Like, reach out to me. Like, we can have, like, a conversation about, like, what might be happening that's preventing you from understanding the beauty of this project, because this is just an absolutely brilliant project. Like, I really, really love After Hours a lot. I will add that to my list of things to listen to. So, almost an hour later, we have gotten through my top 20 albums of 2020. Like I said, starting with The Weeknd and ending off at The Weeknd. So, hopefully, number one, that introduced you to some projects, because, like I said, there are some older projects. I think the majority of those projects were not from 2020. So there's some older projects, some, like, projects from the 90s, projects from the early 2000s, that if you haven't listened to yet, like, I highly recommend. Like I said, those Khalees projects are amazing. Erykah Badu's Mama's Gun, another project that you really should listen to if you haven't. You probably heard some songs off there. Like I said, Bag Lady, like, that's on there. And then Mos Def's Black on Both Sides, another project. So they run, a couple decades, but there was just something about those projects this year that I really loved. So I highly recommend, kind of at least picking a song or two off of those projects, and hopefully that gives you another, like, kind of glance into, some projects that I really like, and, like, the range of music that I like. And yeah. So I'm gonna leave you to hopefully go get some water, like I am, because I am very thirsty. I thought I had water in my water bottle, and I shook it a little bit and it's empty, so I have to go fill that up. But episode 4 will be out next Thursday. You can find episode 1 and 2 with the together on Spotify. You should already, like, be able to click Thursday Emo Podcast. If you click there, you'll see the other 2 episodes. If you're on YouTube, you can hang out after the end song comes on, and you'll find a playlist of every single Thursday Emo episode ever, which has only been 2 other ones. So you can listen to the other 2. There's also a link to that playlist in the description box. Like I said earlier, if you're listening to this on YouTube, like it, share it, comment. If you're listening to Spotify, hit the little heart button, and follow, so you'll have my podcast pop up on your Spotify homepage, and you'll be the first to hear it. And I'll see you the next time.